General Hospital spoilers tease that Lulu stands motionless in a room filled with an eerie silence, where every wall seems to echo Rocco's screams, the unspoken questions she cannot erase. She watches her son, the child she once held tightly in her arms through lonely days, the child she vowed to protect at all costs, now looking at her like an enemy. She thought she was doing the right thing, believing that by hiding the truth about Gio, she could maintain the fragile stability in Rocco's life. But what she thought was right has now become the source of a new torment haunting her son's mind, and Lulu can no longer save him. When Rocco turns back with red-rimmed eyes and clenched fists, Lulu knows this moment will be etched into her heart forever. He is no longer the innocent boy who cared only about music rehearsals and after-school soccer games. The Rocco of today is a betrayed teenager, a young soul struggling with a cruel truth no one prepared him for. Why did you hide this from me? The question is not spoken aloud. But Lulu can feel it in her son's pained, accusing gaze. It pierces her heart deeper than any knife. She begins to tell the story, no longer hiding or protecting herself. She talks about the night she discovered the relationship between Dante and Brooke Lynn, the tense family meetings, the collapse she had to suppress for years. She speaks with all the remorse in her heart, how she doesn't hate Gio or Brooke Lynn, but was terrified. Terrified that if she told the truth, she would lose the little things she was trying to hold on to. She thought she could delay this pain until Rocco was mature enough to face it. But that delay turned out to be the dagger into her son's trust. Rocco listens but does not accept it. His anger doesn't subside, it grows like waves crashing harder against rocks. He starts talking about the times he and Gio played music together, about how Gio looked at him with a strange gaze, as if he knew something Rocco didn't. Now, with all the pieces put together, Rocco realizes he has been surrounded by lies. Not just from Lulu, but from Dante, Brooke Lynn, even Gio. He feels as if his whole world is collapsing. As if everyone he ever loved conspired to hide the truth from him, as if his existence was merely a byproduct in a family tangled in secrets he was never meant to know. He begins to question his place. If Gio is Dante's son, why has Dante never spoken about him? Why is Rocco the one forced to endure the nightmare of this discovery alone? Why is Lulu, the one who has always been by his side, who once cried for him, who vowed never to hide anything from him, the one who burdens him with this painful silence? Rocco starts to distrust everyone. This obsession takes over his mind hour by hour, minute by minute, preventing him from sleeping, focusing on school, or trusting his own feelings. He begins to isolate himself, from friends, teachers, even those closest to him. In his mind, everyone is two-faced. For Lulu, Rocco's breakdown is the cruelest punishment she could receive. She always believed that a mother's love was strong enough to overcome any storm. But now she must face the truth, some cracks cannot be healed by love. And some mistakes, even made with good intentions, can completely shatter a young heart. Lulu doesn't know what to do, whether to keep telling the truth or remain silent to give Rocco time to heal. Every action she takes could be another blow to her son's fragile soul. And in that moment, when Rocco leaves the room and slams the door shut, like a final declaration between mother and son, Lulu feels as if every breath inside her is drained away. She sits silently, hugging herself, feeling a coldness deep to her bones. No tears left to cry, no words left to explain, only a heavy silence enveloping the house that was once the only safe place for her and her son. Lulu realizes the only thing she can do now is wait. Wait for Rocco to be ready to come back, ready to forgive, if that is even possible. She knows the road ahead will be long and thorny. But she also knows she will walk it, step by step, with all the love left in her heart, for Rocco, for Gio, and for the truth that can no longer be buried. Lulu clings to her fragile calm like someone teetering in the middle of a violent storm without any life buoy nearby. She tells herself that if she explains gently enough, if she speaks convincingly enough, if she keeps things as simple as possible, Rocco will gradually understand, forgive, and return to the innocent boy who once trusted his mother completely. But Lulu misjudged, not because she lacked love, but because she failed to realize the wound she left in her son's heart ran deeper than she thought. Every word she utters now, no matter how well-meaning, is like an invisible blade reopening the betrayal Rocco is struggling to endure. Then the bad news comes. Rocco is not in his room, not at a friend's house as she guessed, but has gone to see Lois Cerullo. He refuses to listen to his mother, doesn't want to hear from Dante, and doesn't ask Brooklyn. He chooses Lois, the woman he believes has no reason to keep hiding the truth, the woman who has confronted Lulu directly, and perhaps because of that. Lois represents the raw truth Rocco desperately wants to know, no matter how painful. This is not only a shock to Lulu but a clear sign of the psychological explosion simmering inside Rocco, a current of anger, confusion, and the urgent need to claim his right to know and face reality. Lulu's heart sinks with fear imagining Rocco standing before Lois, his eyes filled with rage, his voice trembling from betrayal. Mouth full of questions that she should have been the first to answer. At that moment, Lulu understands that all her efforts to keep things simple, which she once believed was best for Rocco, have become an invisible oppression, a chain forcing her son's mind into silence while his soul screams for the truth. She realizes she never gave Rocco the chance to prepare, to know, to hurt, but only forced him to endure the collapse of what seemed stable. Rocco's visit to Lois also represents a new threat to Lulu, not from Lois, but from Rocco's choice. It shows that he no longer sees his mother as the most trustworthy person. That replacement, that shift, is the cruelest thing a mother can feel. And it makes Lulu's fear rise like a tide, washing away the last pieces of hope bit by bit. Lulu begins to wonder, if Lois says too much, if she lets her anger take over, or worse, if she doesn't understand Rocco's fragile soul and says something she shouldn't, what then? How will Rocco react? What will he do? Will he return in tears, or will he leave forever? This question tightens around Lulu like cords squeezing her neck, suffocating her as she can do nothing but wait. The obsession starts taking over quietly but fiercely. Images replay in her mind, Rocco screaming, eyes full of hatred, smashing things with his hands, or worse, the silence as he walks away without a word, without promising to return. Each vision twists a knife deeper into Lulu's heart. She knows she has pushed her son to the limit, not through violence, but through prolonged silence. By trying to simplify a truth that is inherently too complex and cruel to hide. Now, the price of that simplification is a teenager's soul standing on the edge of collapse, swallowed by chaos that adults should have borne. Lulu's fear is no longer just about losing trust but has turned into a terror for the future. She fears Rocco will trust no one, start seeing life with suspicion, believe all feelings are fake, and all adults two-faced. She fears her son will lose not only trust in her but also the ability to love others, even Gio. Because hatred born from betrayal doesn't just target one person, it can burn all connections around it. And that is the real danger, not outbursts of anger, but emotional paralysis. Once Rocco no longer wants to talk, to love, or to trust anyone, Lulu will lose him in a way no one can see. She will still hear his footsteps in the house, still see his gaze passing by. But in her soul, he will have long gone away. Now, Lulu has only one thing left to do, pray that when Rocco listens to Lois, he still keeps a tiny bit of faith for his mother. She knows she cannot run to stop it, cannot erase what has happened, but she hopes, with all the love of a mother, that in the chaos, Rocco will not forget that someone is still waiting for him to come home. Not for immediate forgiveness. Not for everything to return to how it was. But just to start over, from the beginning, as two strangers who need to learn to understand each other again, with truth, no more lies, no more simplification, no more hiding. Only sincerity can heal a broken heart. But to reach that, Lulu knows she will have to lose a lot, maybe everything. Lulu never wanted Gio to hear the bitter confrontation between her and Lois, an explosive argument fueled by years of suppressed lies. By a truth that had been buried for too long and was just waiting to surface and shatter everything. In Lulu's mind, if there was one thing she had tried to protect, it was so that Gio, the boy she didn't give birth to but who was an inseparable part of her family, wouldn't have to suffer the feeling of being unwanted. She knew Gio was intelligent, sensitive, and vulnerable. The fact that he accidentally overheard that argument opened a chaotic door. Not only in Joe's heart but also in the life of Rocco, the younger brother who had never known he had an older brother, who was never prepared to face a completely turned upside-down reality. Now, Rocco and Gio, two fragments of the same truth, found each other amidst the turmoil. They didn't need adults' explanations. They didn't wait for permission to understand that both of them were surrounded by secrecy, pushed off the path they should have had the right to walk from the start. And that created a quiet but powerful bond between two teenagers who had never truly been close. To outsiders, they were just two kids spending more time together. But to Lulu, Dante, Brooklyn, and even Lois, this new alliance between Rocco and Gio was a brewing storm. It signaled that the walls adults had built to protect the children were now crumbling piece by piece. Broken by those very children, desperate and hungry for the truth. And Lulu knew that from that moment, nothing could go back to how it was. Rocco and Gio beginning to seek answers to the family's many secrets was no longer an innocent or curious act. It was a declaration. A journey. A mission they took upon themselves, as if only the truth could soothe their anger, only the truth could help them redefine themselves in a world that adults had constructed out of lies. But that was also the beginning of a chain of upheavals Lulu could never have anticipated. She felt like everything was slipping out of her hands. As if the children she once held in her arms were now sliding away, running towards things she couldn't control. The new obsession that appeared in Lulu was not fear of the truth itself, but fear of how the children would face it. She couldn't stop Rocco and Gio. She couldn't ask them to stop searching or say it would hurt them, because they had already tasted that pain. The scariest thing was that they were boldly stepping into a world adults wanted to bury, hoping it would never be awakened. And now, Lulu felt like a relic soldier on a new battlefield, where children, with their pain and doubt, were rewriting their own lives. Each passing day, Lulu sensed a new kind of madness forming, not outward chaos, but a smoldering instability gnawing at every relationship, every moral shell she once believed was solid. Everything was changing. The family pieces no longer fit together as before. Promises once spoken were now just hollow echoes in memory. And amidst all these changes, Lulu knew what scared her most was not that Gio and Rocco would find out the truth, but what would happen after they knew everything. Could they forgive? Or would they fracture further? Would the new bond between the two help them heal together, or just pull them into a spiral of pain and resentment, until they turned their backs on everything, even on each other? Lulu had no answers. All she was left with was a sense of helplessness watching two children, two victims of silence, embark on a dangerous journey where no one could predict what awaited at the end. And when night fell, when she saw the dim light from Rocco's room burning late, she understood what was coming would be a series of inevitable shocks. And once again, Lulu could only wait. Wait for the door to swing open, so she could look into her children's eyes again, hoping that when the truth was laid bare, love, though cracked, would still remain somewhere for them to start over again. Lulu never imagined that one day she would become an outsider to the children she once called family. The truth was ruthlessly emerging clearer by the day, like a crack spreading across an already fragile glass. She was slowly being pushed out of both Gio and Rocco's lives. Every morning that passed without hearing Rocco call for his mother, every time Joe's eyes passed over her without a flicker of emotion, Lulu realized that the distance was no longer temporary. It was permanent, the inevitable consequence of choices she once thought were right. Gio, the child not born of her but always present like a haunting secret, had now found new support in Rocco. And Rocco, her biological son who once clung to her as if she were his whole world, now looked at his mother like a stranger. The two were building a new bond, based on shared pain. On a hunger for truth, for autonomy, and escape from the hands of adults who had built a false world for them. Lulu, through her silence and fear, had inadvertently pushed her sons into the arms of a secret once hidden, and that made Rocco feel closer to Gio than ever. Being excluded from the maturation and inner dialogue of these two boys not only hurt Lulu as a mother but also took away the only tie she still had with Dante. In the past. Despite fading feelings and separate paths, Lulu and Dante still had an invisible thread, companionship in raising Rocco. But now, as Dante also began to bond with Gio. As their two sons formed a world where Lulu wasn't invited, that thread was gradually cut. Conversations between her and Dante grew sparse, awkward, cold. No longer calls to discuss Rocco's studies, his emotions, or family plans. Everything became just dry notifications and updates, as if she were a temporary guardian, not the biological mother of either child. That feeling, being pushed aside, replaced, surrounded by silence, became a silent threat Lulu never thought she'd face. No one stripped her motherhood, but she no longer had the chance to truly be a mother. This not only shattered her heart but pushed her into an alarming psychological state. Lulu began to doubt everything, herself, whether Dante's affection for Gio was compensation or substitution. Whether she still had value in the family structure she had devoted herself to building. This change was not just a quiet withdrawal from loved ones' lives but a clear sign of a brewing disaster. Lulu sensed it, a breaking not loud but profound. This disaster didn't come from an accident or direct insult, but from coldness, indifference, and prolonged silence in every room she entered. Gio no longer came back when she called. Rocco silently passed by her every morning as if she were a lodger in her own home. Dante, the man who once knew her every breath, now looked at her with distant eyes, as if a gap existed between them that no memory could fill. And Lulu, who once believed love was enough, now realized love could not conquer the truth when it was distorted. She had thought she was protecting Rocco, protecting family stability. But in the end, all she held onto were the shattered pieces of a beautiful past breaking apart day by day. She understood she couldn't bring the two boys back to her with tears or belated apologies. The new bond between Gio and Rocco was so strong it could rewrite the entire family structure Lulu once knew, and she was no longer part of that story. In the darkness engulfing her life, Lulu had only one choice left, to stand on the sidelines and watch, hoping that one day, when the pain fades, when the truth is no longer sharp like a knife, when both Gio and Rocco are mature enough to understand she isn't completely the villain, they will come back. Not as children needing protection, but as grown men compassionate enough to give her another chance, not to fix things, but to exist again in their hearts. But until that day comes, Lulu is left with silence, loneliness, and an unnamed fear growing stronger every hour, the fear of losing everything without a chance to say goodbye. Lulu Spencer sat alone in the room that used to be her most sacred place, the place once filled with Rocco's laughter, the evenings they spent wrapped in each other's arms reading books. The mornings she gently woke him with a kiss on his forehead. Now, the atmosphere in that room was chillingly suffocating. Everything was still there, the bed Rocco once slept in, the drawing he made in second grade still hanging on the wall, but Rocco himself was gone. Not because he had physically left, but because he had withdrawn all his emotions. All the trust and love he once gave her, as if cutting a thread that no one could reconnect. And this did not come as a sudden blow, but slowly, bit by bit. Painfully bleeding silently in Lulu's heart. She had noticed the change long ago but refused to accept it. At first, it was Rocco's gaze no longer lingering on her. Then, he stopped sharing what happened at school. After that came the times he left home without warning, curt answers, rare hugs, and finally, absolute silence. No looks, no goodbyes. Just a cold indifference like an iceberg sinking Lulu into an indescribable feeling of loss. Rocco, the child she carried for 9 months, raised with all her love and sacrifice, had now denied her existence as his mother. Not through arguments, not through tears, but through an irrevocable act, he chose Lois. To Lulu, Lois was not an enemy. But in this silent battle to reclaim her son's affection, Lois had become the absolute winner. She was there at the right time, listened the right way, said the words Rocco needed to hear when Lulu could only remain silent. Lois did what Lulu couldn't, became a safe haven, the place Rocco turned to understand Gio. To make sense of the anger and confusion inside him, to ask the questions Lulu didn't have the courage to answer. And so, in a short time, Lois, once a stranger, became the new center of Rocco's life. A substitute mother, not by blood, but by presence at the right moment. Nothing hurt Lulu more than witnessing her own son turn away, not with harsh words, but with coldness and distance. That was the cruelest rejection. And Lulu understood she had lost everything without the right to fight back. She had created that distance with fear, with delaying the truth. With the mistaken belief that her son was too young to face the complex reality. But Rocco grew up faster than she expected, and that growth came with a painfully clear awareness. He knew who was lying, who was avoiding, who was sincere. This shock was unlike any tragedy Lulu had ever experienced. She had lost loved ones, survived accidents, been betrayed. Fallen into a deep coma. But all those wounds could be healed with time, effort, forgiveness. This time, the wound was in the deepest place, a place a mother never thinks she will be hurt. The trust between her and her only son. And the cruelest thing was that Lulu could do nothing to change that truth. She could not reclaim motherhood legally. No court, no lawsuit. No argument could change it. Because motherhood was not a title. It lay in the child's heart, and once that heart closed, no key could ever open it again. Lulu began to withdraw. She avoided friends. Even family. Every time she saw Dante with Gio and Rocco, she felt like she was looking at another family, a family she was no longer part of. No one kicked her out, but everyone else kept living. Loving, sharing, without needing her presence. That truth did not make her angry. It tore her apart from the inside. Each passing day was a reminder that she had failed, not only as a mother but as a human being. And in that obsession, Lois appeared as a symbol of everything Lulu had lost. Not because Lois was evil. But because she had done what Lulu could not. She became Rocco's refuge when Lulu turned herself into a storm of secrecy and hesitation. Lois never intended to take Lulu's role, but somehow. Her frankness and willingness to face the truth conquered Rocco, helping him overcome the betrayal his own mother once caused. Now Lulu had nothing left. No child, no Dante, no future to look toward. The only thing left were memories, scattered pieces of a past where she was still called Mom. Those fragments weren't enough to piece a life together but were enough to make her endlessly torment herself, endlessly relive every moment she lost everything. And so, Lulu's story closed, not with a grand ending, no forgiveness, no chance for redemption. Just a lonely mother, forgotten, replaced, erased from the heart of her own child. A woman living haunted by what might have been, if only she had been braver, more honest, stronger to face the truth from the start. But if could not change reality. And Lulu would forever be the mother without children.